we master these tasks, do we consider trying to land on the moon?
Neil, if this flight is successful, you'll go down in history. What kind of thoughts do you have about that?
We're planning on the flight being successful.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
One of the greatest accomplishments ever by man was the landing on the moon July 20th, 1969, as Neil Armstrong did in Apollo 11. That moment and what led up to the history of that lunar landing is so beautifully told in the upcoming film First Man, starring Ryan Gosling, brought to us by director Damien Chazelle, the pair that brought us the Oscar-winning La La Land a couple of years ago. And they are in studio with us this morning. Guys, welcome officially. Nice to have you here with us.
And no one was excited at WGN at all about you guys being here today.
No special preparations, anything.
Well, you're not as excited as we are.
Yeah. We had to tase a couple of people in the back office. This movie, I've been talking about it since I came back from the Kennedy Space Center last week and saw it on their IMAX screen, which is the way to see this movie, by the way. Phenomenally made, but I'm just wondering, with your chemistry of the two of you from La La Land, does that make a project easier? Are you able to get inside each other's minds a little bit?
We tried telepathy, it just hasn't worked. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like, yeah, I was really grateful to make La La Land at all, but also that it was a great preparation for this. You know, this was a really tall order, and we needed all hands on deck, and so to have had the experience of getting to make a film together, and not just any film, but a film that was sort of like, you know, a dramatic film, also a musical, just a lot of moving pieces, and it was great preparation for this film.
Why is Ryan so perfect to be Neil Armstrong, David?
Well, I actually pitched Ryan the idea of this movie before we even did La La Land together. So initially it was just as a fan of Ryan's. I think he's one of the, I mean, it's weird to say this while you're sitting here.
Should I go?
Fangirl moment.
I'm going to fan out a little bit.
Just cut me out of it. Go for it, David.
No, very well for you.
So anyway, as we were saying, no, I think he's one of the great actors alive, and so I think he can do anything. But there was something about Neil. You know, I was just fascinated when I started doing the research on this, how much I didn't know about Neil. You know, for someone who's so famous, he remained a mystery to most people, and even people close to him. And just what he and Janet sacrificed in order for us all to, you know, enjoy that one small step was just this incredible story of duty and heroism. And it just felt like Ryan could embody, and with Claire Foy playing Janet, that both of them could just embody a sort of quiet heroism that I felt we hadn't seen on screen in a while. And I knew Ryan would take it really seriously, which he did, and he researched for years along our side, and both of us spent a lot of time meeting the families and spending time with Armstrong's kids and with Janet Armstrong herself, and just trying to get to know who the man behind the myth was.
It's also an event that unified the country in the midst of the Cold War. Did that have anything to do with wanting to make a movie in this time that we live in that is so partisan?
Well, I do think there's something so beautiful about what the moon landing did. If you look at that period in the 60s, I mean, the country really was torn apart in so many ways, and then this, you know, again, this one small step, this sort of singular moment unified everybody. I think it's a reminder, in any day and age, actually, I think it's always relevant, a reminder that, you know, just of what humans are capable of what, you know, this country's capable of what, when there's enough collective will, when there's enough willingness to not just act in your own self-interest, but for a greater good and sacrifice, what's possible. And I think, you know, certainly we're coming on almost 50 years now of that event, so it feels like something worth really thinking about.
Ryan, what were the physical demands on you with this? Because, I mean, it looked like you were in capsules, in close, tight spaces for much of the photography with this. Sure didn't look green screen. It sure didn't look like stuntmen. It sure looked like you in some of these tight spaces.
Yeah, there was, you know, definitely a physical aspect to the film. You know, and it was challenging to a certain degree, but honestly, it was a lot of fun, and it felt like an incredible you know, such a unique and singular experience to be having. You know, Damien worked without green screens, like you mentioned, so we had giant LED screens, so much attention paid to the capsules to make them authentic. You know, reading the actual comms, you know, so we're saying exactly what the astronauts were saying at whatever time they were saying it in the capsule scenes, having people who had been to the moon advising us on set. So it was an extraordinary experience. I think that the most difficult part was just knowing that Neil and Janet's sons were going to see the film, and that they weren't going to see a film about a historical figure. They were going to see a film about their mom and their dad, and it's been I think the biggest relief and what feels like a success is that they are supporting, you know, that they support the film and they're with us, and they feel like, you know, that we didn't mess it up too much.
Well, because Neil Armstrong was such a famously private person, didn't want a lot of attention. So great that we finally get to hear his story and, you know, like what he went through leading up to and what his life was like as a result of the lunar landing.
Yeah, he's both him and his wife Janet were just extremely, you know, private, you know, courageous, you know, patriotic people who lived their lives outside of their own self-interest, and they, you know, I think this, you know, they deserve the tribute that this film attempts to pay to them.
Yeah. Before we went on the air, you and Sarah were talking about kids and so forth. I wonder, have your kids, Ryan, seen you in this? And
No.
I wonder how they will react to Dad being an astronaut.
I don't know. I mean, I think my oldest said to me the other day, she pointed to the moon and she's like, "That's where you work, right?"
You're a hero to your kids. That's great.
So right now they think it's very possible to grow up and be an astronaut, which I think I'm excited about.
Going through what you went through, would you ever, I mean, there's people talking about going to Mars now. Would you guys ever want to get on one of those flights up there? Or are you kind of like, I know how it happens?
I think we would probably both be liabilities.
Yeah, I realize that. You wouldn't want me on that flight.
Mission, but we'll gladly make the movie about it. We're in for that.
Ryan, when you were younger, was there a guy on screen that you said, that's the guy I want to be, or that's the guy who inspires me to act like this?
You know, I really loved Gene Wilder growing up, and mostly actually comedic actors. You know, I watched a lot of Abbott and Costello when I was a kid, and yeah, those were, you know, Mike Myers, because he was from Canada.
Right, sure.
You have favorite directors, Damien, when you were growing up?
I think first I wanted to be Walt Disney. I was drawing. I was obsessed with those old Disney cartoons. And then it kind of went into live action. But yeah, I've always wanted to do movies. So yeah, it's kind of certainly a dream come true getting to do that.
Yeah. Later in the week, we're going to share the interviews that I did at the Kennedy Space Center with Neil Armstrong's kids and the rest of the cast. We're going to be sharing that throughout the rest of the week, but the movie First Man will hit theaters this coming Friday, and I'll have my full, as you can tell, I already liked it, but I'll give you my full review on it this coming Friday. First Man, Damien Chazelle and young upcoming actor Ryan Gosling here with us this morning as well. We wish you the best in your career. Ryan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Stick around the 9 at 9 coming up next.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.